So if you're looking at the Express Entry program for a Canadian visa, one of the things you're going to need for that is an Education Credential Assessment, pretty much for anyone who has qualifications from institutions outside of Canada. And I just want to talk a little bit about our experience and some of the challenges getting that. I'm going to talk about our experience and challenge with Australian education providers, the experiences and challenges we had with a number of different ECA providers, as well as just look at the outcomes in the end and the timelines, how long it all took. So one of the reasons I thought this might be interesting to some folk is that because of our background, we had to deal with 3 universities and 1 TAFE college for our ECA. So the first one was Queensland University of Technology, that's QUT, and I basically have a 5-year double degree through them. We also had to deal with the Australian Catholic University, that's ACU, and I've got a 3-year degree through them. We've got Adelaide College of Divinity, that's ACD, and had a 6-month grad certificate through them. And we also had to deal with TAFE Queensland Brisbane. My spouse has a 1-year diploma with them. So firstly, I think it's worth mentioning which ones were the completely hassle-free experiences. Now, QUT and ACU were both totally hassle-free for me. They had a simple online form to request your academic transcripts that you just did through a Google search. You found it. You just pay online, fill it out online. They responded quickly. There were no issues. There was no confusion with what they wanted. It was very good. So the ones that sort of fell into the, it was a bit manual, but generally drama-free was the Adelaide College of Divinity. So basically, they didn't really have an obvious process or form on their website. I had to contact the administration to get that sorted. I had to pay over the phone from talking to someone. They were pretty quick at getting it sorted. And it took a little bit of explaining, but generally they understood what was required and were extremely helpful along the way. And to be fair, I think this is the experience you'd have with any smaller education provider or institution who, isn't dealing with students from all over the country all the time. All right, so that brings us to the ones that it was just a complete nightmare for. And frankly, this is probably most of the reason why I wanted to put this together, because this, I think, would be an issue for anyone who wanted to try and get an academic transcript. So TAFE Queensland Brisbane. There was no online process or form to get it. We emailed administration just through their contact form, didn't hear anything for about a month. Rang them up multiple times. They didn't seem to understand why you would want an academic transcript or even understand what that request meant, and got bounced through many times. They promised to call back, never did. My wife visited one of the campuses in person, and the people at that campus said they couldn't help, had to go into Brisbane. And when we finally got talking to people in Brisbane, they basically flatly said no, they cannot issue an academic transcript unless your existing one has been lost or destroyed. So we were pretty much stuffed with that, or at a dead end. So what I ended up doing was saying to them, look, if I bring the original graduation transcript that was given to my wife when she graduated into the campus, can they verify it, seal it, and sign it as required for the ECA? And in the end, they said yes. So physically gotten about, this took 3 months from the time we requested it at the beginning to when we finally had something sent to the ECA provider. And basically now we sent away all of her originals, and now they're happy for us to fill out the form that says we've lost the originals and they'll issue us new ones. So unlike all of the other universities I dealt with, TAFE Queensland seemed to have simply no concept of why you would want an official academic transcript, let alone being able to send one overseas or anything like that. It was all too hard for them. Didn't matter how we tried to get it. It was just incredibly frustrating. But yeah, we got there in the end, and her forms were all official and printed the way they need to be. Again, and once they were packaged up, sent, sealed, verified, it was all okay, and she got the credit for them. So I'll just have a quick look at the different ECA providers that we use. Now, firstly, I selected ICAS, and basically I did that for price because I was going to be sending a bunch of different qualifications, and it looked as though they were the most competitive for that. Though, as I looked on their website, after having applied and some reviews and things, it became apparent that they were very, very slow. So I think that's important to consider. And they're so slow that I ended up lodging my ECA, so another ECA, again with WES, so World Education Service. And our ICAS ECA ended up arriving just before our PPR. So take from that what you will, and pay close attention to the timelines that they offer in reviews. So the one that we ended up using for both my ECA and the one for my wife was World Education Service. And I've just added our timeline there with them, which I think speaks for itself. And they were fast and efficient for both of us. Though I think it's important to note for World Education Service, I actually only sent the degrees. I didn't worry at all about the graduate certificate. Just stuck with my degrees, and for my wife, her diploma, because that was all we would need for points. The other thing I think is important to add in here is just the outcomes. So firstly, the 5-year double degree that I did through QUT, even though it is 2 separate paper degrees, I've got separate ones hanging on my wall. One of them has first class honours all on its own, as I'd done honours. It was only considered to be the same as a 4-year bachelor's degree, which was a surprise to me. The 3-year single degree translated to a 3-year degree, which wasn't a surprise. The 6-month certificate basically just came back as a postgraduate certificate, and the diploma got the equivalence of a 1-year college program. So I think it's just important to bear in mind that you may not get the result you're expecting, especially if you've done a double degree program, which they're fairly common in Australia, even if you've done effectively honours level work on one of those degrees. The other thing that I think is important to acknowledge as well is that the results were consistent in terms of their handling of the degrees between both ICAS and WES, which is what you would hope for something standardized like this. But I think it's important to keep in mind if you were to, going to appeal or something like that to try and get a dual degree considered as 2 separate degrees. So this behaviour seems to be consistent between ECA providers. So I've got a couple of takeaways for this, which is firstly, if you're considering express entry, even if you are just thinking about it, not sure, I'd really suggest just start with your ECA first. And, some people I've seen on YouTube and on forums say, hey, just do them both in parallel, like IELTS and ECA, it doesn't matter. But the fact of the matter is that for your ECA, there are simply too many variables that are beyond your control that may cause delays. You might have a delay with your one of your academic institutions. You might accidentally pick a slow ECA organization, or, they might just have a large volume of stuff to be dealing with that might be slow. So, there are things beyond, so many things beyond your control with an ECA in terms of how long stuff takes to get processed, postage, and whatever, that you really need to start with that first. You also need to start with that first because you may get an unpleasant surprise in how they evaluate your courses. So, for example, if I'd been looking for the points for 2 degrees and I'd submitted an ECA with only my double degree just because it was easier to deal with just one institution, and I got the result back saying, oh no, it was only one, I might realize I don't actually have enough points. So I think it's worth doing that ahead of time because, you can't accurately predict what the result will be. I think also importantly, your ECA is valid for a full 5 years. So, get it done now. Your IELTS is only valid for 2 years. So if you did your IELTS and did your ECA second, only to discover that your courses weren't worth enough points or one of your institutions was very difficult to deal with, your IELTS, may even expire before your final ECA comes through. The other takeaway is select the fastest provider you can. It's simply, at least in my opinion, not worth the stress of extra delays. So, if you're only saving like $50 or even, for me personally, $100 going with a provider who's a bit cheaper, but they're going to take months and months more, it's just not worth it. Express entry has enough delays and stress already without having to add to it at this initial stage before you've even got your invitation to apply. So, look, I hope this was helpful. And definitely let me know if you have any questions. I'm also planning to create some more info on our experiences of applying through Express Entry from Australia, as there doesn't seem to be a lot of content covering this. It tends to be for folk coming from other countries rather than Australia. So, yeah, it was that other content was helpful. Don't get me wrong, but there were some key learnings along the way for us that I think will be helpful for other people who are looking to basically explore the option of going through Express Entry from Australia. So there you go. Thanks for that. Best of luck.